I didn't do my podcast last week. And that's the thing. Sometimes life gets in the way. So in today's podcast, I'm going to talk openly and honestly about what do you do when situations like this happen, when you've lost momentum, when you've lost consistency, and how to get out of that kind of spiral. So this is something that I feel like a lot of creative people in particular face in their careers. We get a knockback like in a particular job or with a particular client that we worked with. We get into situations sometimes with people at work who resist what we want to do with the marketing activities that we want to deliver to the organization. We get into situations where maybe we have to fight for relevance within our role as a result of marketing often being relegated to being the colouring in department or the, I guess, writing department, although that's becoming less now because of AI. So we are literally becoming a colouring in department at this stage in many places until AI comes for that too. So what do you do when you go into this downward spiral? Okay, let's talk about my situation and why I didn't do a podcast over basically the last fortnight and how I'm recovering that. Okay, so this started because I had some life events that happened to me. I found out that I've been given a notice to vacate this property that I'm in from my landlord. So, a year after moving into this property, I'm finding myself in a situation where I have to move out. And it's quite sad, to be honest, because I've furnished this and made this place really a place that I want to be in all the time. And now, I guess me and the furniture are going to have to find another place to go at a higher rent as well, because rental prices in this area have gone through the roof, and I'm going to have to find somewhere to live, and I'm going to have to pay more to live in that place. The other thing that happened was a couple of career related setbacks, and I guess what happens to me in these kinds of situations is that with my career, I double down and I start to work even harder in my career. And I pretty much let everything else go in my life just to get through the career. This time I had the rental situation as well. And what I was doing with that was I was probably inspecting like maybe 6 to 8 properties in a week. And it got to the stage on Saturday where I inspected this property that literally had the walls jutting out of the hallway, and they wanted to charge $700 a week rent for this. Like, I wish I could have taken a photo of this because it was like perfect for a horror movie. But yeah, they're trying to rent that for $700 a week, and someone will probably take it because it's in such a great area of Melbourne. And there's a lot of demand for this kind of thing, but I think that reminded me about the fact that I have to focus on my goals that I want to achieve. And one of the goals that I want to achieve it is to do a podcast for marketers where I share my expertise. And the frequency of the podcast that I've committed to is weekly. So I am delivering on that weekly podcast. I know I've been inconsistent, and I feel like some of this inconsistency also started happening a little bit earlier, actually. I struggle still to see myself on camera. It's a very new thing for me. Before I started doing this podcast, I was basically doing some TikTok lives. I didn't have that many issues with those, but I think doing long form content is a lot trickier than like a 30-second video where you're like mimicking some song, or a TikTok live where you're literally engaging with an audience. And I could talk for 3 hours on that, really. But this is very different because I'm talking to myself on camera and then I'm editing the video to some extent, and it's creating like some stage fright, especially because that first podcast that I did was so good in terms of the quality of the presentation that I guess I delivered. And then this one hasn't, the rest of them have not been as great as that. And I've been finding that doing things in one take as well is not something that's actually that easy. So I'm getting used to this kind of format. So I was starting to fall off a little bit anyway, getting to the point of this. I was starting to fall off a little bit. It's like putting out my podcast like a day late or maybe like a couple of hours later than it should be. So it was happening all in the background. And then it all accumulated into this fortnight of what happened. Life events happened and my podcast kind of suffered as a result of that. But that's not how things should be. In fact, one of the key principles that I learnt as a marketer is consistency is one of the key things in life. And even if things are not going your way or not going right in the marketing campaign, you need to keep going. You need to keep going, because if you don't, you're not necessarily achieving a strategy. A strategy works by there being basically a pattern in a stream of actions. Now, let me talk about this in a way that might be a bit easy to understand. Okay, so let's say that I just ate cake every single day. And I had this goal of losing weight. The chance of me achieving that goal is very low if my diet elsewhere was exactly the same. Obviously, if cake was the only thing I was eating in the day, it would be a bit different. But the thing is that a pattern creates an outcome. And when you break a pattern, that's when you basically prevent that strategy from happening. So by me not being consistent with my content, I've basically been creating that. And I've seen that with the metrics of my podcast as well, because my views haven't been as good as when I've started, and neither has my engagement. So I need to get back on the horse. And some of you might think, oh, like maybe quit. Like if you can't commit to this, like maybe quit. That's not how the game is played with consistency. You can have some of these gaps, but you've got to just continue to keep going. That means that next week I'm going to do the podcast. Let's say I don't do it on that particular day, I've still got to put something out. I've got to keep that momentum going, because that's how social media firstly works in terms of getting your content seen. It's very much posting regularly at the moment, and then your content gets seen. And then the other side of it is, it's a more practical side. People that have subscribed to your podcast or want to listen to your videos or watch your videos and things like that, they're expecting you to put content out. And if you're not delivering, they're going to lose interest and go away. So that's why I'm here today, putting out this podcast at the right time and doing my part. It's been really challenging, those personal things in my life, and they're continuing as well. I'm working through them. I'm putting in the effort with the rental properties. I'm working through these setbacks that I've had at my work. And I am also working within the remit of being a marketer, being a woman that's needing to look for a new apartment, and just being me in general. And I would encourage all of you to keep going with whatever you're doing. It doesn't have to be a situation where, just because you stop at a particular point, you can't build back momentum. You can get through things, and that's just a part of life. Sometimes, the outcome might be delayed. Sometimes things don't work out, but then it's about figuring out, what are the lessons in that. And so far with this podcast, it's been a great ride for me. I've been able to talk about marketing. I've done podcasts that have been like various formats as well. It's been a while since I've actually come onto the podcast and talked to you directly about my career and what's been happening in my life. And I thought for this one to ease back into it, it was a good opportunity just to give you that insight into what's been happening.